Risk disclosure. I'm actually not going to read that today in light of some time here. So, but just understand that trading in Forex carries a high risk and it can please wipe out your account if you don't know what's going on. So please pay close attention to all the settings that we talk about in this presentation, along with all of the different presentations that we have put on in the past, which has been a few. They're all in the back office of Auvoria Prime. They are important stuff, and we're going to go over some more of that again today. Let me switch over to one other screen. I think I'm probably going to get in the habit, just because it's easier to chart, talking about the 6E, which is the Euro FX June futures contract. This correlates a lot with the pair that we're trading, just because it's easier to get a bigger charting system. My trading systems and my discretionary client stuff is actually on another computer, so I can't open up that charting package on my presentation system, which is this one. At some point, I'm going to try and figure out a fix between that so I can start to show you guys some charts. But today is the 28th of April. We are coming towards the end of the month, and just taking a look at the Forex factory that we talked a little bit about over the weekend. Note that we've had some relative calm in Forex land. We've got some channels that are sort of trending up and down on the three main currency pairs that we trade. There's a lot of red in terms of news events. As I mentioned over the weekend, we had the ECB press conference that's coming up tomorrow, or actually on Thursday. Tomorrow is the big FOMC stuff, so we're probably going to be listening closely, as I've mentioned in the notes that I put out over the weekend. The head of the FOMC, Jerome Powell, and the entire press conference is probably going to be closely watched. I don't think we're going to expect anything out of this group, including the 12 governors, because it's all widely known that all these ECBs, for the most part, are on the same page as far as providing global liquidity and seeing that markets are executed orderly as far as trades. So that's what's most important, as I'm just kind of sticking to the macro on this. I know that, Ryan, you and I had talked a little bit about pre-webinar thoughts on this, and you actually had a really good point talking about the software settings and how to kind of keep that in line with some of the conservative stuff, which is beginning to seem a bit redundant. I get it, but I think it's important because each week we have new subscribers that are just joining Auvoria Prime. And one thing I love about Ryan is he's constantly on the settings. So I'm going to announce a little bit of further details as I'm in the process of finishing up, probably later this week, a series of specific videos that I'm shooting just myself on the software settings, where you're actually going to see into my Einstein account here. I'm just talking about specifically how the settings I feel should be, as we're gaining more experience with different types of settings that have been changed around in a more aggressive stance for other softwares. You know, stay tuned for some better insight into how things can act once you understand the basic software settings. So, as I always recommend to anyone new, and if you're just joining us or you're fairly new to the Auvoria team, welcome. I think it is critical. One of the most important pieces, other than introducing this to lots of friends and family, I think the most important piece from risk management side is understanding how these settings affect how the software trades. So you can see these are the generic out-of-the-box settings once the software is set up. I like to call it the 3-2-1. But in this particular case, I've been sort of playing around. This is one of the videos I was just shooting on this. But I have it set to a trailing equity. So when you have it set to a trailing equity, the fixed weekly goal is in an inoperable position, meaning that if the account was to go up 3%, it would not take you out, because the trailing equity in the profit management section here has been set to not the fixed weekly goal, essentially trailing equity protecting the account. So, Brian, if you would please talk a little about what you talked pre-webinar, because I thought that was really important on, the 1.6, the 1.7 we talked about, if you could please. Let me just share this other screen too while we're at it.
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm on the, you guys can see the Einstein screen okay, I guess, hopefully.
Yeah, I can see it. I can see your settings.
Very cool.
And so as we think about trying to be out of the market not later than Wednesday, I think the thing that's really important is that people understand how to effectively do that with the software. And so if I'm using your particular current readout as a point of reference, Steve, I can see that your current week's performance is just shy of 1%, okay?
Right.
And so if I was leaning more towards the conservative approach, the first thing, well, let me back up one step. If I was really wanting to embrace best practices, the first thing I would personally do is adjust my trailing equity start to a number just underneath the current week's performance, with the intention of getting the trailing equity start to trigger right now. And then once we do that, so again, looking at your screen, it looks like the week's performance is hovering right about, 0.7%. It's kind of oscillating a little bit. And so what I would probably do is go ahead and if this was my account, I would adjust. Yeah, thank you for mousing over that, Steve. I would adjust the trailing equity start to perhaps 0.65, something like that. Again, the purpose is to get it to trigger so that we have the benefit of that feature protecting our account, okay? And so yes, right where you've highlighted, and they would just literally, if someone was doing this right now, double click on the 2.0, get in there, and we would edit that particular input, again, to some number just underneath your current week's performance. Now, from there, you have a couple of options. If you were somebody who maybe wanted to be a little bit more conservative, you would reduce the trail buy to a smaller number, maybe 0.5, maybe 0.2, which will probably take you out just about immediately. That's not a lot of breathing room. If you wanted to still get the benefit of this feature, protecting your account and preserving, the zero loss of the current status, right? Because we are in an equity gain right now of about 0.7%. If you wanted to maximize your breathing room, in the trail equity buy percentage, you could just simply input the same exact number as your trailing equity start. So what does that in effect do? Well, that basically means that you're putting your account in a zero loss setup, but with as much breathing room as possible. So for example, if the trail equity start was, let's say 0.65, and then you put your trail equity buy percentage also at 0.65, it means that if the market doesn't climb any higher from where it is right now, and it reverses, you would get taken out at a zero gain, zero loss. That's what those inputs would be instructing the software to do. But at least you're then giving yourself whatever that input is in breathing room. And hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So for example, if we put in a 0.65 for our trail equity start and a 0.65 for our trail equity buy, we're giving the software almost 0.7% in breathing room, right? And so, Steve, I know that you're a big advocate of trying to have as much breathing room as possible, but while at the same time protecting our positive equity position. So I don't know if you want to talk any more about that, but that's kind of, from a setting standpoint, that would be, my approach, given the fact that it's now Tuesday afternoon. And remember, folks, our best practices are to try as retail traders to try to be out of the market before Wednesday is over for sure, especially given this week. Steve and I were looking at the Forex Factory news for the latter part of the week, and there's plenty of red folder items on the docket for tomorrow, and then even more on Thursday. And so, yeah, you can see it right there, right? Look at all that red folder activity. So you really do, I think anyway, Stephen, I'm going to hand it back off to you and let you elaborate on this, but I think that it's probably prudent to err a little bit more on the side of caution at this point in the week, given what we see right here on the screen with the Forex Factory News. And I see a lot of red folder stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of central banks coming out this week. That's some of the most important events as far as currency, other than a particular director of a country or prime minister or president coming out and speaking. So they're all, I think that the currency markets have just gotten a little calmer. Obviously the VIX index, which is a volatility measure index in the U.S., has come down tremendously. So the volatility has subsided a little bit. But I've gotten a lot of people hitting me up on messaging asking, well, how can we cast a wider net? And with the vast majority of them, I asked them, are you familiar with the basic settings? And they weren't. And I always will refer back to the risk. As your risk manager, I want to make sure you understand how the settings operate first. And then before you start to play around with casting a wider net or opening up a fixed weekly goal and not having a trail buy in any case, whether it be a trigger, which I have a tendency to view this a little differently. I view this more of like a trigger. It's a start, it's sort of a goal. Your account needs to get to this point in a given week in order for this to kick in, kind of like a trigger. And then the trail equity by percent, which is the number below, will trail and just, it's almost like hanging on to the coattails of the account's performance and backing it up by, in this case, 1%. You can always change these around. But I found that most of the people I talked to via messaging, they didn't understand the core basics. So I thought it was a great idea from the Auvoria Prime team to suggest, along with Tyler and a couple of other guys, Ryan, they suggested I do individual series or modules, if you will, on each software setting. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot that. They'll be anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes in length. We'll put those up in the back office once they get produced. I think that'll help out a lot. But I do understand the impatience of some. They're saying, "Wow, these settings are really conservative," but in almost all cases, they were not able to demonstrate to me, just like I did for a student on the other side of my business. If they can't demonstrate to me, a level of acumen of knowledge in a particular category, where I always will tell them to stick to the default settings like you see here. So, and keep in mind with some of the other questions I got around the closeout trail day, that's Thursday at hour 14, which is 10 a.m. Eastern time, New York. It's when we want, ideally, the software to be shut off once we hit that trail equity buy. So, actually, you know what, Ryan, do you want, as we're moving through this, do you want to answer some of the questions I've seen popping up along the way? How do you want to handle Q&A this week?
So I'm not actually seeing, I don't know if we have the Q&A disabled on this particular session. I don't know if you're seeing on your end. I'm not seeing any Q&A.
Okay.
Let me see. Let me just look and see if I can, here, give me 1 second. I might be able to turn it on my end.
I see 2 participants raise their hand.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, look at that. So we do have, okay, so we do, here's what we're going to do instead, Steve. Okay. I think I've got this figured. Omar was able to get a couple of polls set up for us. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll. And the first poll question is, who is running demo or live? And so there's 3 choices, everybody, as you're attending. You have the choice of demo, live, or both. And so select one of those 3. I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll, and then you guys should all see it now. Anybody who's attending, you should have the ability to see the poll. And so there we go, Steve. I don't know, can you also, as a co-host, see the real-time polling data come in? So this will make for some great discussion, I think, as we can collect this data on the poll. So we just about have, we're over 100 people who have now answered the poll, over 115. So we'll let it run here for probably another 30 seconds. We should have collected just about everyone's response, which will be great.
Who's paying attention and who's not, right? Should be
like,
hey, everybody, get back in front of your computers now. We got to answer this poll. So.
Yeah, let's see. All right, we're almost there. We'll give it you guys are nice and fast. It took you less than a minute for most of you to go ahead and weigh in and respond to the poll. So that's fantastic. Thank you. And by the way, everybody, understand this is really valuable feedback. Steve's been asking us to get this in place for the last couple of weeks because this helps him to help you. This most definitely helps him to help you. And so we appreciate you guys responding to the poll. This is going to help Steve better understand kind of where our community of software users are at, how you're using the software, and then he can most effectively give us, again, kind of the insight that we need to make the most of our experience as customers of Auvoria Prime. So we've got, you can see it there, Steve, about 143 responses. 82% of the attendees have voted. Let me know, Steve, when you want me to go ahead and end the polling. We'll let it run for now.
Let me just take a quick peek here. I'm just sort of viewing this real time. I probably should have asked this question maybe a little more specific, because what I'm really trying to gather is who is currently running a demo or who has already ran a demo. Okay. So if, you can always change your answer to it if you would, because the key I'm really looking for is, in a perfect world, I would love to see all subscribers. I know not everybody wants to do that, but remember, I'm your risk manager. I would love to have seen all subscribers have run a demo account before they did a live one. Again, risk management, right? So ideally, if you have a live account and you're not running a demo, set one up. With most Forex brokers, it's very easy to do. And we could certainly talk about that at some other time if we, everybody's got a lot of questions surrounding that. But ideally, you want to run a demo before a live is really the reason for the poll. So I had asked Omar to do a couple other ones. Do you want to do another poll now?
Yeah, let me go ahead and, so did you capture, and I'm sure Zoom is probably recording this data as it gets collected. So I'll go ahead and end this poll and see if we can find the other one. I think he set them up as two separate polls instead of multiple questions. So let me look, and let's go ahead and end this one. And okay, so it looks like, there we go. Here's the second one. Okay, I found it. So you got to get a look, Steve, before I toggle over to the first poll. Okay,
so
good.
I got a screenshot, so we're good.
Excellent. Okay, so here's the next poll question that we're going to launch out. Who has successfully linked their MT4 platform to an account at myfxbook.com? And so I'm going to go ahead and launch that next poll. And I have a feeling that one's going to be probably slanted more towards the nose, but we'll see. I may be pleasantly surprised. And then I've also enabled the chat, Steve. So if you want to also bring up the chat screen, you can see some of the questions coming in via chat if you want to address any of those.
Yeah. And remember, guys, keep these questions related to settings. Not like, hey, what's MT for? So, just move over here.
All right. So we've got about 130 responses on this second poll question, as far as linking their MetaTrader 4 to MyFXBook, and kind of as I had anticipated, the vast majority have answered no. Although I am surprised at how many actually have completed that step. There's currently 56 out of 142 responses who have answered yes, that they have done that. So 57 now.
Okay, let me show.
So that's about 39%.
Andre asked, why does your Forex counter look more red than mine? The calendar is filtered out. So I filter out the orange and yellow events. I don't know if you can see that here on the screen. Make sure I'm sharing the right page. Right, here we go. You want to filter this out. That way you're not looking at all the noise in the middle. You only care about the red events. Next question is, if we run a demo with an expert, can we run a demo and live with one software license, and do we need separate licenses? That is a question for you there, Ryan. Michael asked.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just.
Yeah, if we want to run.
Let me scroll up and find the question.
Michael.
Okay, let's see.
Brian, no, it doesn't cost additional to run the demo. Just open up an account.
Yeah, you just have to toggle your license over, right? So just so everybody's clear on that, you can use your existing license to either your Alexander or your Einstein on either a live account or a demo account. You're not able to run two accounts actively trading simultaneously with only one license. And so each individual software license can be applied to only one actively trading account at a time. And so if you were to toggle your license away from your live account over to a demo account, then it's no longer affecting the trades on the previous account. So be very careful. Make sure you're completely out of the market, especially if you're moving your license from a live account across to a demo account. Make sure that that live account has closed out on all the trades. You don't want to leave an account exposed by moving the license across to a demo account. I'm sorry, Steve. Give me the question one more time. I'm scrolling through, but I'm not finding the question that you referenced.
It says, if we want to run a demo with the expert, can we run a demo and live with one software license, or do we need separate licenses?
Okay, so I think we just answered that. Perfect.
Yeah,
okay.
Same license, essentially. So, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Costs more money for them. What to do, and I tell you, this is a really good question asked by Frank. What to do with a drawdown of minus 0.5? So essentially the account's down this week, and I'm assuming it's down this week, 0.5%. What trail equity setting would I need, Ryan?
Well, so if you're technically, right, if you're down in current equity, you're really not trailing your equity at all because you're not in a positive situation right now.
So
that doesn't mean
triggered. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And that would actually be a great question, Steve, I think, for the guys at STP. Yep. If we put a negative input into the trail start, does the software accept that number or does it not? That's actually a question I personally do not know the answer to.
So I already have that down. Yeah, I already have that down as far as lists of stuff to go over with the developers next time I talk to the STP developers guys. So next time I talk to them, I'll go through that, because I don't know, it just seems like we should have more latitude as far as a trail equity start trigger in the negative fields. Does that make sense? So it's almost the reverse. I don't know if that's even doable. I mean, we're getting kind of, super risk management here, right? But I guess that's my role. So I can at least ask, right? So
that's right.
So with the poll on the second poll, I'm seeing, and I'm not an expert in polling here, guys, who will be eventually, but what are the results of the second poll?
So it was about 30. Oh, I'm sorry. You want the FX book or the demo versus live?
Yeah, here we go. Okay. So I switched over. Looks like you could toggle. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
So I wrote, I wanted to see results here. Ideally, folks, with this particular, it looks like most everybody answered that, so thank you. But with this one, I'd ideally like to see this yes in the 80%. So that tells me almost half of everybody, or less, or I should say half or more, have not hooked it up. And that I would do. Why? Because that's going to show everybody the importance of looking at, and I'll shoot, one of these modules I'm actually going to shoot on a MyFX book hookup. I know we have a couple of them already out there that some of the global directors have put out, so I'll take a look at what they are. Maybe we can use one of those existing videos. But ideally, this is most important, at least to me, because I can view all the stats on how Einstein or Alexander is trading. If you understand the stats and you understand kind of the analysis from a very general level, this doesn't have to be a deep dive, guys. And there's a bazillion metrics that are calculated on myfxbook.com from the trading inside the MT4 platform, by Alexander or Einstein. But the key thing is just looking at win rates and looking at the maximum drawdowns over periods of time. I will start just the education on that only. I wouldn't get too deep into all the other metrics unless you really understand the two that I just talked about. But it'll be sort of a further education for the subscriber base at AP to understand how the software is operating. You don't have to understand it, but I'll tell you, you'll be tremendously more comfortable, especially if you're considering putting big money to work in terms of the software trading account for you. And I'm talking something like, 10, 20, 50, 60,000. This software is currently trading multiple 6-figure and 7-figure accounts that I've already seen. It's done very well. And the settings are held very conservative. Some of these settings, they're even more conservative on those accounts than what I'm showing on the screen, which is our out-of-the-box default settings. So what's that tell you, right? That tells you even with the larger accounts that are running variations of Einstein and Alexander, their settings are even more conservative than the out-of-box stuff we're showing here. So what's that tell you, right? And these are guys running big accounts trading this. So that's kind of why I've spent most of my time as the broken record that Ryan and I are. That's why I've spent most of my time trying everybody to do a deeper dive on understanding the new phenomenal abilities that the software has as far as the trail equity start and the trail equity buy percentages. So, okay. So I said enough on that subject. Let me just jump into the last of these questions here. This one I do not understand, but I'll read it. Is it normal that Einstein only opens buy positions? The software is looking for a high percentage win rate among many different factors. So it's not trading just patterns. It's trading a lot of stuff. The addition of many, many factors that could include moving averages, what I call rubber band stretches, which are just trading the outside extreme movements in a particular channel that it may be trending in. So there's a lot of different things the software looks at. So it'll take long and short positions. Let's see here, next question. So we already addressed the week's performance when it's negative. That's one of my priorities, talking to developers. So a couple of the questions are related to, hey, their results don't look like mine. The results that you're seeing and will continue to see in the Einstein 3K account here will not change. This account is not going to be played with or adjusted in any way from the settings that you see on the screen. The out-of-box ones I talk about are default settings. I'm going to let this run with not changing these settings for a whole year. I want to see an entire year of data with this. And I'll be sharing multiple other accounts, especially Alexander with the exact same settings, having approved all trades, right? So I think we have an even comparison between the two softwares. And then once we get, hopefully, everybody educated on the core understanding of settings and how MyFXBook, we're going to begin to expand outward to some more aggressive stuff. And the caveat that will come with that will always be the same thing. If you have larger accounts to trade, pay more attention to, our future aggressive stuff. If you don't, please make sure you really understand our out-of-the-box settings first. Does that make sense, Ryan? Anything you want to add to that? I'll go through some.
It makes perfect sense, and I think that this is the rub, right? So if we go back to the poll, let me pull it back up. And look, my name is Ryan, and I'm your friend. Okay, just like Steve's echoing, right? From a risk management standpoint, yes, the fact that we have access to these amazing technology tools to equip us to make money, that's the point. Totally get it. That's the point. However, I look at the poll and I see that the majority of the responses are that people are trading live. And I guess all I'm really doing, Steve, is echoing what you said. Guys, if you don't if you don't understand a certain aspect of the settings and how those might affect your trading. For example, there's a lot of questions about lot size. There's a lot of questions about, how to input certain settings based on an account balance. What I would tell you is exactly what Steve has said. Don't be in such a hurry to get live money into the market because you don't have to, right? An extra month of using the software on a demo account to the benefit of your understanding is a very small price to pay in the long-term scheme of things when you do have live money in the market. That's the beauty of the fact that you can use the software on a demo account for as long as you would like. That's going to be your greatest point of reference to learn, is allowing the software to continue to trade on a demo account. And I would tell you to take it a step further. And Steve has talked about this previously, and I believe that even Adeze Duncan speaks about it in the Auvoria University. Keep a trading journal, right? And you can start to find some kind of behavioral patterns of the software that will be relatable to you, that equips you individually to make decisions with your own software, your own trading account based on your own personal risk tolerance preferences. And I know that might sound ambiguous, but you guys have to realize this is not necessarily a black and white, one size fits all type of a scenario. And so I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Steve, but I agree with you. I don't think we can possibly overemphasize how valuable it will be to people to continue to allow themselves to use a demo account until they actually understand how the inputs are affecting their trading account.
Yeah, and just because I'm looking at some of the questions here, a lot of these questions, guys, honestly, Mariska has a fantastic point here. If you're not understanding things like lot size and a whole bunch of these other questions that are coming through, please go through the Auvoria Prime University Forex Basics, just like Ryan had mentioned on a couple of times. Because I'm seeing a lot of questions related to people that have not been through at least the basics part of that course. She's done a phenomenal job putting that together. She has way more patience than I would ever have shooting that. So for that, I'm not worthy, right? So please go through that. But a lot of the questions are all related to the accounts being in some sort of negative position. And I hope with most of these questions coming through with the accounts being down, that this is a demo, guys, right? And because if you're not understanding this question, you're running live money, it's going to be tough. So, and I hate to be the brunt of bad news, but one thing that most of my colleagues and clients will certainly echo, and friends, is that I am brutally honest in terms of transparency and stuff. So please make sure you're going through these courses. We can't lead you guys. We can lead you guys to water, but we certainly can't make you drink. So please prove us wrong on that. In any case, one other question here. Thank you for that, Mariska. I appreciate the reference to that great course. All right, here's a question. Do you have to wait till all three pairs are in profit before altering trail start and trail by percentage? No. That software is going to execute based on what's going on in percentage up or down inside the account. Hi, can you tell us more specifically what the trail equity goal and settings under it do with a number of examples? So Cindy, I've heard this question a lot. This is going to be answered when I do the series, okay? So I'm going to go through a number of examples. I'm going to go outside of the default settings that you see on the screen here. I'm going to go into elaborate more on other stuff. So for the questions related to what to do specifically, which I'm not going to go through today because we're kind of run out of time. I'm going to get to another client meeting. I will cover that in the settings. Let's go through some other questions. Understood that Alex would not be allowed to take one or stale trades if you take Sales to apply the trades like first thing in the morning. Okay, so if you're running Alexander, from my understanding, the trades that show up, if like you get a notification like I do, it just dings my phone. I log into the system and I approve the trades. But coming off an evening where you're asleep, where your notifications may have been dinging all night, I will come in and just decline them all. And I want a fresh set coming to me. So if anybody's got any advice outside of that, please let me know, or if they want to expound upon that, because that's what I'm doing right now. And again, remember, guys,
I do the same thing as you, Steve. Same exact thing.
Yeah, so just remember along, I may be able to provide some tremendous insight this, but guys, I've only been running the software for a couple of weeks as well. I've certainly seen its previous versions run for almost a year now, but we have a whole new set of data to be commenting on, and we can't use any of the old iterations of the software because not only is it old data, the software is acting completely different now with our trail by protection. So just keep that in mind. All right. Okay, questions related to having trouble setting up on your PC. The person that brought you to Auvoria, I would contact them. Let's see, is it possible to start the trail like the symbol? And by the way, you guys should all have a Zoom account, which I would hope set up. Zoom offers a free account if you want to set one up. That way you can communicate with your upline and downline people just like we are here. It's actually fantastic software. The stock has done absolutely outstanding. That is not a recommend to buy it here because it's really overpriced. So what is my current goal? Getting a lot of questions surrounding a lot of these questions, guys. They're all coming from, looks like you have not participated and or seen any of the previous week's webinars. So make sure you check out some of that because they're going to be answered for the most part. And trying to keep these questions very general instead of getting into specific pairs, because I have not done enough dissection on this week's trades in either Alexander or Auvoria to know the answers to most of these questions I'm getting surrounding specifics of how a trade took place. Yes, to start, Mr. Wolf, I would always run this on a daily time frame. The software has shown some significant promise on smaller time frames, and I'll leave the discussion at that right now until I've had a more of a deeper dive with the developers in our, what I'm trying to have is a bi-monthly call. That's another question I have as far as stats, it running on a smaller time frame. I would not get into that at this point. I don't have enough data to give you a definitive answer on that one way or the other. So just run it on a daily for now. Unless you have just oodles of money and you don't have a problem with the software acting outside of our default settings, I would say I still probably would not until I understand. I do get it with some of these questions come in that, some people have, considerably larger accounts that they want to set this up on, but I still recommend using a demo to start. It should almost be a prerequisite. Maybe that's if there's even a way to implement that, Ryan, it's like almost like it should be a prerequisite, but we can't control obviously how accounts are set up at Forex firms and whether it be demo or live or both. Ideally, I want to see the demo first. Run it for about a month, guys. All right, let's get through these questions. I've gone through most of them. I don't know if there's one that really stands out. I covered a lot of this stuff. Yeah, what do you think, Ryan? You want to cut it off at this point, or you want me to run some questions?
I think you've gotten through the majority of them, as you acknowledged. We're coming up on an hour, and I know you have other appointments today as well, so I don't want us to hijack the remainder of your day. You did an amazing job, Steve. Thank you. I mean, you got through a lot of questions, and We appreciate everybody for submitting your questions. And as we continue to communicate each time we do these, we may not get to all the questions. We're going to do our best to get to as many of them as we can. And we encourage you to continue to show up and ask your questions. Keep a trading journal. Write down your questions in between sessions. And so when you come to the next session, you may have things that you think of between now and the Saturday session. Write down your questions in your trading journal. And again, we are working with the back office team to try to figure out some kind of mechanism that will not be overburdensome to Steve, but will also give you guys the ability to start to submit questions. But continue to do what you guys are doing. Many of the questions had a very common theme, and so Steve did a great job of addressing kind of the most frequently recurring themed questions throughout today's session. And so just continue to bring your questions, and we will take some of those questions as well, and that'll enable us to produce new polling questions to start to flush out where you guys need, more instruction, more education. But yeah, please use the Auvoria University. Please use the Forex Basics. Please make sure that you go through those courses, not once, not twice, but literally as many times as it takes until you really understand the content that's being taught. And also, please do not be in such a hurry to get live money into the market if you don't understand certain facets about what the software is doing. And so I think with that, Steve, we can probably call it good. Thank you, all of you who tuned in today. Again, you are for sure the most valuable part of Auvoria Prime. Your legacy matters to us. You are our valued customers. And you are the reason we do this. And again, Steve, thank you, my friend, for being here and for always providing such incredibly powerful insight. You are an amazing addition to this Auvoria Prime leadership group, and we appreciate you more than you probably realize at this point, because you're serving our community extremely well. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just one point of clarification if I've confused our group. Einstein is connected, or Alexander is connected to your MyFX book by you guys individually, not corporate. Does that make sense? So you guys have to actually go in and do that yourselves. So it's an interesting task. Let's just say that. So we'll get you more educated on how to get that done. But for those that are experts at connecting this, get in touch with me via your director. And maybe give me some insights into getting this streamlined for the group as far as feedback, because I want to shoot a short and quick video. It's going to maybe be 3 minutes, if that, on how to connect it. And I think it's going to be absolutely important. If we've got tons of videos out there on this that I do not know about, let me know. Other than that, Risk Manager Steve Vetterl signing off, guys. Have a fantastic and safe week.